everyone, the book I'm reviewing today is Alex Ferguson, My Autobiography. I love reading autobiographies, and especially of people who show phenomenal leadership skills. And Alex Ferguson is one such person. My kids being soccer fanatics, I tend to watch a bit of soccer now and again, and his ability to command teams has always fascinated me. So when I saw this book, I thought I have to read this, and despite it being thick, it's so interesting, and the concepts he discusses are so fascinating. It's an absolutely beautiful read to go through. I'll read some extracts for you. Reflections. Sometimes defeats are the best outcomes. To react to adversity is a quality. Even in your lowest periods, you are showing strength. There was a great saying, "It's just another day in the history of Manchester United." In other words, fighting back was part of our existence. If you are lackadaisical about defeats, you can be sure there will be more to come. And that's the beauty of it, right? It's his autobiography, and his fame is through sport, but there's so much from sport that we can adopt about teams, about people, about human emotions, about leadership, about management. And this is one. Sometimes defeats truly are the best outcomes for us. And how do we react to adversity is a quality that we need to nurture and learn. How do we behave in our lowest periods? Because there is no success without defeat. Here in this chapter, he talks about his roots, so Glasgow roots. The motto of the Ferguson clan in Scotland is Dulcius ex asperis, or sweeter after difficulties. That optimism served me well through 39 years in football management. Years ago, I read an article about me that said, Alex Ferguson has done really well in his life despite coming from Govan. Spot the offending phrase. It's precisely because I started out in the shipbuilding district of Glasgow that I achieved what I did in football. Origins should never be a barrier to success. A modest start in life can be a help more than a hindrance. If you're examining successful people, look at their mother and father, study what they did. For clues about energy and motivation, a working class background wasn't a barrier for many of my greatest players. On the contrary, often it was part of the reason they excelled. And that's another beauty, right? How many times have you in your life heard a compliment despite? And it goes to show that our origins should never be a barrier to our success. And more often than not, it creates the mindsets needed for success. Football management is a never-ending sequence of challenges. So much of it is a study of the frailty of human beings. And that was beautiful. The way he put it, the frailty of human beings. It's shown in football, but we see it across all aspects of our lives, because in the end, it is humans that do everything. With young people, you have to try to impart a sense of responsibility. If they can add greater awareness to their energy and their talents, they can be rewarded with great careers. One asset I possessed when I started as a manager was that I could make a decision. I was never afraid of that, even as a schoolboy picking a team. I was instructing players, even then, you play here, you play there. I used to tell them then. And again, beautiful reflections about how to motivate young people, and so much of what paralyzes us is making a decision, whether it's what you want, which route to go, how to direct your team. Make a decision. There was a model there, as in all of my 39 years on the front line. You have to stand up for yourself. There is no other way. And that's it. You have to stand up for yourself. You have to believe in yourself. There is no other way. If you don't do it for yourself, how do you expect others to? There's a chapter where he talks about his retirement U-turn. These are some extracts from there. No matter how good your CV, there are moments when you feel vulnerable, exposed. But there is a fear of failure in a manager the whole time, and you are on your own a lot. Sometimes you would give anything not to be alone with your thoughts. There were days when I would be in my office in the afternoon and no one would knock on my door because they assumed I was busy. Sometimes I'd hope for that rap on the door. I would want Mick Pellin or Renee Mulistian to come in and say, "Do you fancy a cup of tea?" I had to go and look for someone to talk to, enter their space. In management, you have to face that isolation. You need contact, but they think you're busy with important business and don't want to go near you. For many of us who have been managers, I think this speaks volumes about management. This is from a chapter called Beckham. Sometimes you have to take something away from someone for them to see how much they loved it. David didn't have many choices at the point of his transfer from Real Madrid to Major League Soccer in 2007. I imagine he also had his eyes on Hollywood and the impact it would have on the next phase of his career. There was no footballing reason for him to go to America. He was giving up top-level club football as well as in the international game, although he fought his way back into the England squad. That proves my point about the disappointment at the heart of his career in its later stages. He drew on a huge resilience factor to regain his prominence at the elite level. I hold no rancor towards David at all. I like him. I think he's a wonderful boy, but you should never surrender what you're good at. David was the only player I managed who chose to be famous, who made it his mission to be known outside the game. Wayne Rooney was on the radar of an industry that would have liked to change him. His profile was established in his teenage years. He had offers that would make your mind boggle. He was making twice outside of football what we were paying him. The corporate world would have loved to have taken over Giggsy, but that was never his style. In his final season with us, we were aware that David's work rate was dropping and we had heard rumors of a flirtation between Real Madrid and David's camp. The main issue was that his application level had dropped from its traditionally stratospheric level. Maybe he wasn't mature enough at that time to handle everything that was going on in his life. Today, he seems to manage things better. He is more certain of his position in life, more in control. But it was reaching the stage back then when I felt uncomfortable with the celebrity aspect of his life. When he joined us, he was this wee starry-eyed kid, football mad. At 16, he was never out of the gymnasium and couldn't stop practicing. He loved the game. He was living the dream. Then he wanted to give it all up for a new career, a new lifestyle, for stardom. From one perspective, it would be churlish of me to say he made the wrong decision, and in the sense that he's a very wealthy man. He's become an icon. People react to his style changes. They copy them. But I'm a football man, and I don't think you give up football for anything. You can have hobbies. I have horses. Michael Owen had horses. Scholes had horses. One or two players liked art. I had a lovely painting in my office from Kieran Richardson. What you don't do is surrender the nuts and bolts of football. This is from a chapter called Rio. Our message was simply that he had to balance fame with a need to remember what made him successful in the first place. Some won't do that. Some can't. There is the moment when a player asks himself, what is he going to do? Because stopping is such a void. 1 minute you're playing in European finals, FA Cup finals, winning championships. Then it all fades to nothing. How to cope with that is a challenge all footballers face. Fame offers no immunity from the emotional come down. The second half is not as exciting, so how do you recreate it? How do you replace the thrill of sitting in that dressing room 10 minutes before the kickoff of a game that is going to determine who wins the league? These are extracts from a chapter called Lean Times. The team was altering. It's not an easy thing for a manager to see change coming from a long way down the road. The old back four broke up fastest. When these sudden changes strike, you realize you don't necessarily have the backup. Later, I made it my policy to plan much further ahead. I think this speaks so much of volumes about the amount of change we're experiencing in the world of work right now. Change is never easy on anyone, but planning is so critical. And yes, it's hard for a manager to see change coming from a long way down, but we need to train ourselves to start planning much further ahead and to plan for change. There is no substitute for being appreciated at work. To be told you are doing a fine job is all very well as far as it goes, but there has to be monetary recognition. And this is something that we sometimes forget. Praise, recognition, appreciation goes a long way, but there has to be monetary recognition. We acquired him too easily. It made me uncomfortable. When there is a sudden rush to solve problems, mistakes are made. We were at our best when we worked from a plan over years and studied players, compiled detailed information. We knew all about Cristiano Ronaldo before we signed him. We tried to get Rooney at 14 and tried again at 16. Finally, we cracked it when he was 17. You could plan for Rooney. He was an obvious target for us. That was Manchester United scouting at its very best. The Varans and the Cleversons were improvised, not panic buys, but rushed. And this goes for so much in life, right? When you acquire something too easily, is it the correct choice? The uncomfortability that comes with it and rushed buys? You can't leave your character in the dressing room. It has to come out of that room, down the tunnel and onto that pitch. And here he's talking about football, but it goes together with us. You can't leave your character at home. It comes out wherever you walk into, and that's important. This is a chapter from, extracts from a chapter called Ronaldo. We helped Ronaldo to be the player he was, and he helped us recapture the excitement and self-expression of Manchester United teams. The reality of managing Ronaldo, as of other talents who came to Manchester United as teenagers, was that you could oversee the early years fairly comfortably because they were not yet global idols. They were on the way up. At the point they became megastars, as Ronaldo did, you ask yourself a question that Carlos Queiroz and I discussed all the time. How long are we going to be able to keep Cristiano Ronaldo? Carlos was as accurate as it was possible to be. He said, Alex, if you get 5 years out of him, you've struck gold. There's no precedent for a Portuguese player going to another country at 17 years old and staying 5 years. What I always thought about Ronaldo was that even if he was having a dire game, he would always create 3 chances every game. Look at all the matches. In the mountain of video evidence, you could not find one instance where he failed to create at least 3 chances. He possessed an unbelievable talent. I can place everything on that list. Training performance, strength, courage, skill with either foot, heading ability. In the early days, there is no doubt that he acted a bit. His earliest lessons were in a theatrical footballing culture. Injustice was never far from the judgments formed around him, But he changed. One aspect frequently ignored by his critics was the speed he moved at. You only need a tap. You only need to tap a player going that fast, and there is a tendency for him to go over. Human balance isn't refined enough to protect the runner from tipping over at an unnaturally fast speed. A wee prod into the side of the leg or an elbow into the body can disturb the equilibrium. The failure to appreciate that speed to balance factor was unfair. The Old Trafford crowd build up heroes quickly. They see someone who gets their arrears off seats and take to them right away. Ronaldo had the biggest impact on Manchester United fans of any player since Eric Cantona. This is from a chapter called Keel. When we were embroiled in an argument once, Roy said to me, "You've changed." I replied, "Roy, I will have changed because today is not yesterday. It's a different world we're in now. We have players from 20 different countries in here. You say I've changed? I hope I have. I would never have survived if I hadn't changed." And that goes back to the topic of change and about managing different talent and diversity and the need to change. Outside interests is this chapter. Tony was receptive to that message. In any position of power, there is fragility. If you're leading the country, there is a vast responsibility and a certain loneliness that I could relate to. I would sit in my office in the afternoon with my work complete, wanting company. There is a vacuum attached to the job that people didn't want to break into. In his memoirs, he wrote that he had asked my opinion on sacking Gordon Brown when he was the Prime Minister and Gordon was next door in number 11. My recollection is that Tony wasn't specific about Gordon. His question was about superstars and how I dealt with them. My answer was, the most important thing in my job is control. The minute they threaten your control, you have to get rid of them. When you're young, the 14-hour days are necessary because you have to establish yourself, and the only way to do that is by working your balls off. By those means, you establish a work ethic for yourself. If you have family, it's passed on to them. My mother and father conveyed the fruits of their labor to me, and I have done so with my own children and beyond. With youth, you have the capacity to establish all the stability of later life. With age, you have to manage your energy, keep fit. People should keep fit, eat the right foods. I was never a great sleeper, but I could get my 5 to 6 hours, which was adequate for me. Some people wake up and lie in bed. I could never do that. I wake up and jump up. I'm ready to go somewhere. I don't lie there, willing my time away. I came out of a wartime generation that said, "You're born, that's you. You were safe. You had the library and the swimming baths and football. Your parents worked all the time. So either your granny looked in to make sure you were all right, or you reached an age where you looked after yourself. Your basic pattern was laid down that day." My mother used to say, "That's the mince. There's the tatties. All you need to do is put it on 4:30. It would all be ready to cook. You would light the fire for them coming in from work. My dad would get in about 5:45 with the table all set. That was your duty. And you would take the ashes down to the midden. Those were the chores when you came in from school, and we did our homework later, my brother and I, at 7 o'clock at night. It was a simple regime, born of a lack of modern amenities. Now we have more fragile human beings. They've never been in the shipyard, never been in a pit. Few have seen manual labor. We have a generation of fathers, my own sons included, who do better for their children than I did for them. They attend more family events than I did, picnics with the kids. I never organized a picnic in my life. I would say, "Go and play, boys." There's no secret to success in this world. The key is graft. Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, the story of success, could just have been called graft, hard graft. The examples they run all the way back to Carnegie and Rockefeller. There is a story about Rockefeller I love. The family were big churchgoers. One day his son said to him, as the contributions tray were coming around and each worshipper was donating $1, Dad, wouldn't it be better if we gave them $50 for the whole year? Yes, says the father, but we'd lose $3, son. Interest. He also taught his butler how to make a fire that would last an hour longer, how to construct it that way, and he was a billionaire. You cannot beat hard work. Of course, graft and stress place an invisible strain on the body. So does age. From somewhere in that mix, I developed heart trouble. In the gymnasium one morning with the belt on, I saw a heart rate soar from 90 to 160, summoning the weight trainer. I complained there must be something wrong with the belt. And I'm going to leave it at that, and there are still so many other nuggets in this book. If you enjoy reading autobiographies and you're keen on leadership, management, and the psychology of success, I would say, and winning, go and get this book. Let me know if you've read it or what you're currently reading.